Child support is an amount allocated that one parent pays to the other parent to help support the child, to help any daily needs of the child, clothes, food, housing. It's just to help support, and there's no longer two incomes in the home. In Florida, they have a child support guideline worksheet, and that is a formula that is already created, and you put in the income of each party, the number of overnights a child spends with each party, any child care cost, any medical insurance, any copay cost, and it's all put into this formula, and then it calculates and credits all the cost, and it calculates the income and the overnights, and then it'll say who's going to pay child support and the amount. Childcare expenses can be divided in a few ways. The parties can agree that they will split the cost 50-50, or it can be allocated in the child support guidelines. So when you are credited, if you pay the child care fully, you'll be credited for that amount against the amount that you would be paying child support through the guidelines. You can pay your spouse directly for child support in Florida, or you can have an order, an income deduction order entered from the court, where that would come directly out of your paycheck. So that order would go to your employer would process it and deduct that amount from your paycheck, and then it would go to the child support office, and then they would pay your ex-spouse directly. It could be either way. It depends on what the parties agree upon. You could essentially lower your child support if you spend more time, because the way it's calculated is it's done through the guidelines in the state of Florida, and the guidelines base the child support amount off of income and how many overnights you have. So if you have more overnights, you could essentially lower your child support obligation. You can make the payments directly to your ex-spouse. However, I would recommend keeping records and documentation of all the payments that are made. So I wouldn't recommend giving cash. It's better to do a check or money order, so that way if something happens, you can prove that you always pay child support. If child support is not paid, the visitation still must be allowed to be had. The support is for what the child needs, to take care of daily needs of the child, where visitation is for the bond between the parents and the relationship of the child. So they're not dependent on one another. Combined income is the total net income of both parents, and that income is used in the calculation of the guidelines, and it's one of the starting points before you put in how many overnights and how many child care payments there may be made. So the first starting point is to figure out the combined net income of both parents so it could be distributed properly. I would highly recommend going to speak to an attorney about this situation. It's very difficult to deal with the child support office, so the best way to ensure that your rights are protected in this situation is to hire an attorney.